just to start, between Koala Man, Smiling Friends and YOLO, and that Poloni segment, how do you juggle so many projects at once?
Uh, with a lot of help. I'm lucky enough to have a lot of talented animators and people around me that can ease the load. Princess Bento in Australia has, they're doing a lot of the animation for these things. Uh, that there's just a million talented people around me at the moment, helping me when it comes to all these projects. So yeah, delegation.
Yeah, that makes sense. This one's going to be a deep cut, but in the very positive stream in 2018, you mentioned that Koala Man just got picked up, and that was almost 5 years ago. So what's it been like
Really,
to kind
was
of
it?
watch that develop?
Was that nearly 5 years ago?
Yeah, 2018.
Damn. Oh my gosh. Yeah, okay. I completely forgot that. Yeah, so it got picked up by 20th, but then we had to shop it around. Like that's the way it works in this industry. Like when you sell a show, you're not really, that's not the end of it. Like they've
Mhm.
also got to sell it to, if it's in a studio, they've got to sell it to a network. So there was kind of, it was in development hell for quite a few years, but yeah, we just stuck to it, and it was good developing it. It got better and better too, and we kind of, it snowballed and got a bit like more people attached, and the showrunners and Justin as EP, and it gained a lot of steam. And also, like, I was lucky enough where I could work on Smiling Friends too, on YOLO on the side, so I wasn't
Yeah,
just sitting there waiting for this to go ahead. It was more,
for sure.
on the
Yeah,
background.
and I was also really pleasantly surprised to see Damo and Darren show up in this series. When did you decide to include them?
That it just seemed to make sense because for some reason, so when I did Damo and Darren all those years ago, I set it at the Dapto train station. I actually went to Dapto and took pictures of the Dapto train station, then drew over them for the Siggy Butt Brain cartoon. And then when I made the Koala Man shorts a few years later, for some reason it made sense to set Koala Man in Dapto too, because like he'd be annoyed at petty criminals like Damo and Darren. So yeah, it kind of just naturally merged together. And now, doing the Koala Man series for Hulu, it made sense to include them as well, because they kind of worked well together. They're kind of like the Jay and Silent Bob of this universe, like of
Yeah.
of the weird Australian stuff that I do. Mhm.
Awesome. And was there ever any concern about, whether Australian concepts like show bags and the emu war would be understood by an international audience, or were you always confident in that?
Uh, when it comes to those things in the writers' room, the Australians would bring up things that we felt were quite Australian, and the American writers just loved it and ran with it and kind of expanded it. And we realized that the kind of quirky stuff, the weird stuff that is normal to us is kind of funny to Americans, and instead of like shying away from it, it was more like focusing on it, zeroing in on it, and making it like kind of the focus. That was the fun part. So yeah, no, there was no pushback. If anything, like the 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 network and the executives wanted to make it more Australian, and we were able to do that because, like, at the end of the day, the characters still have motivations and wants and needs and everything like that, so we could get away with doing weird stuff on the side.
Yeah. Awesome. And you worked with Justin Roiland again a bit here, and you've done Bushworld Adventures and Poloni Show and High on Life. So what's that collaboration been like over the years?
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, Justin got my first start when I did Bushwater Adventures, the Rick and Morty April Fool's special. I was just making shorts for YouTube, and he messaged me out of the blue. I think it was like at the height of Rick and Morty in season two, and he said, "Did I want to do this like April Fool's special?" And yeah, I just couldn't believe how lucky I was. Like washing dishes at like a restaurant at the time, so like it was the best. And to this day, it's one of the funnest jobs that I got. Justin was so good at just being like, just do anything you want. And I was like, hey, do you want me, like, are you sure you don't want to like look at the script before I do it? And he said, no, just, I don't care. Just you make it. I'll watch it when it goes out on TV, which was, that's a dream when it comes to, a creative person who wants to make something like that. So yeah, he's really, really, he's a great friend and someone I'm eternally thankful for helping out with my career.
That's cool to hear. And Koala Man's a bit more serialized than your other shows. Do you prefer leaning more towards the episodic format or the serialized format? Do you have a preference there?
I don't actually have a preference. I see pros and cons and benefits to both. Obviously, Smiling Friends is episodic. You can tune in whenever and you're going to get it. There's no overarching story or arc, which is good in its own sense. And then, yeah, I like the serialized stuff too. I like having a show that you can binge, and at the end of the binging session, you've gotten a whole story out of it that is cohesive, and you kind of have to watch it from start to finish. There's pros and cons to both, and it's both fun to do. I'm lucky enough to be able to do both.
Sick. And you also do quite a few voices in Koala Man. How do you keep them from blending together or sounding too similar?
Uh, you can't like yeah. I'm just trying to think. Just being as different as possible. Like when I do Maxwell, that is like the most like as harsh as an old man as I can go on my voice, and yeah, you kind of have to keep a log of what characters you've done that are similar. I think Kevin and Maxwell are quite different, and sometimes Liam can sound like Kevin, and I'm always on top of that and redoing Liam lines and still trying to make him go higher because he kind of goes a bit too low sometimes. But the ones that do sound the same are things like the Great One and Tall Poppy. I kind of realize after watching it that I do pretty much the same voice for those characters. It's pretty much the voices I do as Knifey in Justin's game High on Life. It's
Mhm.
like that really the gravelly voice. I can't. That's like my go-to, and I've done that for a few characters. But whatever. My philosophy with that kind of stuff is as long as you kind of thinking about the character as you're doing the voice, it will kind of have nuances to it that are a little bit different than the other ones, even if they're
Mhm.
pretty similar.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned that it had quite a production time with development hell and everything. When did Hugh Jackman come into the picture, and what was that like?
I think that was like, I want to say, God, when was that? I think it was a year and a half ish, maybe ago. Yeah, it was something. I think it was last year. I can't remember, but he, our casting reached out. I was not optimistic. I was very much like coming from the school of thought that I'm a nobody and we're not going to get any big name actors. But I was wrong apparently. I think the fact that it's an Australian animated show and it's something new appealed to people like Hugh Jackman and Sarah Snook and Hugo Weaving. And yeah, I mean, I say it all the time, but I still can't believe we got such amazing talent in this show. I can't process it. Like I can't. It doesn't make sense.
It's a
But
pretty crazy cast.
it's insane. It's
Yeah.
insane, and they were amazing. And I'm just waiting for like it does sound lame, but you're just waiting for like for some reason to be like someone being like, "Ha, you fell for it. That was a joke. That wasn't really Hugh Jackman." And
Long
they take off
con.
his mask. Yeah. But
That's
yeah, they were
awesome.
great. It was. There's not much else to say. That I mean, they're all professionals and they're amazing to work with.
Yeah. And my last question is, when you were washing the dishes before Justin Roiland reached out, did you ever think you would make a show where Jermaine Clement would give a monologue about peeing and eating grubs? Because that's pretty
No,
crazy.
no, I definitely didn't. I think it's bizarre. Like I think about that sometimes. Like it's like trying to time travel back and seeing the show from like when I was at like my lowest or like it's always I always dreamed of doing an animated show like this, so I'm living the dream. It's truly incredible, and I feel extremely lucky.
That's awesome. Yeah. And you definitely deserve it. Your stuff's always been really great. So it's been really cool to see all these Newgrounds and YouTube animators really start to take off out there.
Yeah, I mean, as if I'm somehow helping other YouTube animators and Newgrounds artists get their work out there and get gigs, shows, or whatever they want, then I feel like I've accomplished something. That's really that's really what makes it worth it. Because I grew up with all that stuff, so I feel like I feel like I owe them all something because I'm very inspired by so many people like that. So yeah, it's great.